And that, my dears, is why they call her mother. Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is my review for Pose. This is season 2, episode 3. Listen, this episode, I think this is subconsciously the episode that a lot of us have been waiting for. A whole background story on Mother Elektra. Baby, I was here for it. Here for it. Let's go. 1978 is where we start at. Elektra's out. She working the beat. She down there on the piers, you know, doing her thing. At this time, she's a young girl child. She wasn't even fully into her transition. She was literally bouncing back and forth, living in a home with her mother. Which, baby, listen, the casting for this was everything. It was just like I was looking at me and my mother. They literally they went and found an actress that looked, I mean, she damn could have been his mother. He was the spit image of her. I said, oh my gosh. So the casting was like phenomenal for this portion. That Ryan, listen, Pose got it going on. Pose has it going on. And I know we keep saying that, but it is what it is. Because if they were screwing up, we would be saying about the screw-ups. So I have no problem with saying they goddamn got it going on. Casting-wise, acting-wise, script-wise, they got it going on. Got it going on. Anyway, so she's down there. She work a girl. She's out there with her girlfriend. The girlfriend that lost her damn keys. And even back then, because I was loving the afro. Listen, her and this afro, I said, girl, you better come on through here with this Nubian princess thing going on. But even back then, she was talking shit to the dates, you know, and she was still very, very highbrow and she had a plan for her life. She had a plan for her life. And she knew that this form of street walking, if you will, was what was needed for her to get what she had in mind right then, but not where she was going to end up. Reminds me of another friend of mine. But, yeah, it was very much that. So the girlfriend loses her keys and ends up, she's like, girl, I can't go home like this, dressed like this. So undoubtedly she was getting dressed at her girlfriend's house and doing these things. Babe, soapbox. When I first started doing drag, I didn't get dressed at home. When I first started doing drag, I never had to work the beat or anything like that. I was a performance queen, which is what I still am. But yeah, I didn't get dressed at home at first. At first, I just I had a friend's house that I, would do my thing and all of that. That's a whole nother story for another time. We'll tell that story. I'll do a story time one time on that. Let me get off my soapbox. Boom, 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 bam, I'm back. Let's move forward. But girlfriend lost the keys, and Elektra was forced to go home, okay? She goes home, and she's trying to sneak in. Maybe she take her heels off and all this, and she's trying to sneak in the house. And I think this is one of the lines of the whole episode. And her mother said, Dwayne. I said, not Dwayne. Dwayne, what are you wearing? That bitch looked at her and said, it's Holston. I said, this is getting ready to go all bad. His mother said, it's Holston. Baby, I said, oh, them half non-existent eyebrows is about to touch. It's Holston. I said, girl, no ma'am. Look at yourself. And grabbed him, and she got really violent, and she took him and put him in the mirror. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. What do you see? And he was like, bitch, you, child. I was sitting there, I'm like, child, that ain't me and my mother. Well, my mother didn't go through all that. But as far as look at you, what do you see? You. You, Miss Thing. Spitting image of her. Spitting image. I said, Miss Thing, I see, this is that sticky thing. When you have a mother that has a child that's not good with the gay thing, and then it's the trans thing. Girl, you look, and I think it's even worse when you're looking at your boy child and you're looking at yourself. Then they jump up and drag girl, and they really look like you. I can imagine that hit her, in her core, So that was real. At that point, I'm like, I have these mixed emotions because now I'm feeling bad for her as a parent, as well as for him as the child. It's just too much. It's just too much. It really is. The trans experience is hard for everybody involved. The gay experience is hard for everybody involved. Nobody is unscathed other than the person that is a punk, because that's what it is. It's a punk. A male or female punk who throws their child away and just doesn't try to deal with it. I mean, it's no different than it doesn't matter. You can't control what your children turn out to be. And you're a punk to just, say, okay, well, I'm going to disown you. I'm going to disown you because I don't like this about you. No. Sometimes, separation is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we got to coexist in different spaces, but you don't throw the child completely away to where you don't want nothing to do with them and you ain't talking to them and y'all are estranged. That's crazy. That's crazy. And sometimes the children and the parent will never see eye to eye and know they can't cohabitate in the same space. But the whole that disowning thing, child, that's a punk. You're running from the situation, and I don't know where you're running to because it ain't going nowhere, because everybody around you knows that you have that child. Everybody around you knows that there's an issue, and everybody knows that you just ran away from the issue. So what did you really accomplish? Child, bye. Anyway, but she was having, and her name was Tasha, and she's having this whole issue. And then he says, I'm leaving. She says, no, you're not leaving. See, now she's conflicted. And later on, we actually find out, she got issues. He was the man of the house. She loved her and her child being together situation, but he wasn't being what she wanted him to be, so that was an issue for her. And first she didn't want, she's like, you ain't going no damn where. And then he's like, I'm leaving. He goes up to get this, there's this trunk. And I'm saying he at the time because at that time, she was he at that time. So that's why I'm not misgendering her. I know what I'm saying. At that time of the story in 78, Elektra wasn't yet fully Elektra. She hadn't started transitioning. She was a drag queen at that point. She was he at that point. So pay attention, keep up. He goes to the trunk. There's this trunk. We know the trunk, honey. We'll get to that. But there's a trunk. And the trunk has all the beautiful things, honey. Pearls and furs and all her fineries, baby. And she's trying to get this stuff, child. And the mother says, what are you doing? What are you doing? She said, I'm leaving. She said, fine. So her thing to try to hurt him was, the trunk is mine. It's in my house. She gonna play the whole legalese game. I said, oh, Tasha, you dirty bitch. And it was. That's a dirty bitch. You pulling street games against your own child. Because that's street games. You pull that on some man you've been laying up with that does screwed around on you and you want him to get out. Those are the games you play on him. You don't play those games on your own child. That's shady, and that's really, I said, girl, well, we see where you get some of your candor from, Miss Elektra, honey, from your mammy, because your mammy's a mean bitch. Told her, no, the trunk is mine. It's in my house. Get out. Get out. I said, oh, girl. So she's like, that's fine. She's like, no, it's all I have. She knows these are the things. She didn't have no money. Not no real money, you know. And then in the trunk was money. There was money in the trunk too that she had left, you know, that she had been stashing. She's like, it's all I have. And Mama wanted to fight. She's tearing. I said, girl, you gonna stop yanking and pulling and tearing on this holster dress, honey. But she threw her out the front door, down the steps and out the front door. And she's out there because she had then ripped her wig off. And baby, I said, oh, come on, Miss Elektra. So now you outside. You don't got your heels. She got these like boots, these ridiculous looking boots. And you got no wig. Please. Come on, Mother Elektra. She said, wait a minute. Grabbed this scarf out, wrapped her head. And I looked at her. I said, she going to let you have it, Tasha. I knew it. I knew she was going to let her have it, honey, because right then is when she truly became Elektra, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She became Elektra at that point. She wrapped her head and was sitting there looking like a supermodel, looking just the fuck like Tasha. Looked at her mother, and the two of them, you're looking at them. It was so crazy. You're looking at her, she's looking at you. Y'all both are sitting there, beautiful and black, with these head wraps on, both of them, and got their head was wrapped similar. And she looked at her and told her, I am Elektra. This, that, thing, the other. I am a woman. This, that. I said, girl, just let Miss Tasha have it, honey. Miss Tasha was sitting up there. I said, girl, you know you didn't win. You know you didn't win. Went on back in the house, and that was that. And she walked off. We seen her walking up the street. I said, oh my gosh. So it was fierce, confident, and all of those things. But you don't ever really want to pull those things out against your mother. You don't. You don't. You know, there's very few bitches in the world that you don't mind letting have it. But your mother and your grandmother, those are the two people. And it ain't got nothing to do with female or male. And your dad too. It'll be your dad as well. Your parents, your sibling. I ain't even gonna put the siblings in it because they could get it. But your parents and your grandparents are the people who you really don't want to pull your full queen candor out on. Now we will do it. We will do it. We will let their asses have it if need be. But that's the last. I'm just telling, and I'm speaking from a real. My mother is the last one that I would want to let have it. Have I done it? Yes. Has she pushed me to a point where I had to back her up? Like, girl, Miss Thing, 50 feet, Miss Thing. But I think it hurts you more than it hurts them for you to have to back them up. But girl, I can't let you do too much. Miss Patty, back up, girl. You know, we had to learn some boundaries and some spaces. Miss Thing, over there, girl. You know, but that's not, you don't ever want to really unleash on your parents. You love your parents. And they love you. They just, sometimes you have parents that are punks and can't admit it. I don't have one of those. You know, I wasn't thrown away. But we've had our issues, honey. We've locked horns. We look just alike. We've locked horns, honey. And it's like, girl, 50 feet, you're not going to win. You're not. I'm taller than you, and you're just not going to win, girl. At 50 feet. Anyway, I love my mommy, though, so whatever. So that was really, all that scene was, it was a lot. So then we go to 1994, okay? We back in real time. And we got Mother Elektra, and we see what she's actually doing. This bitch has a whole phone sex operation. We see her going into the building. We see what some police, detectives, stake it out, across the way. We see him and everything. And she's going into the building. I said, where's she going? And that's when we figure out she literally is running her own Star 69 phone sex business. Well, we know that's not Star 69. It's actually 1900 is what it used to be. And 1977. And you, I'm not getting ready to go there. 1700, all that shit, okay? So she got her own thing going. Rolling. Again, reminds me of another friend of mine. Just has an entrepreneurial business mind. Have no business ever having to walk the beat. But, you know, everything good always starts somewhere. It's not always in the best place, but always starts somewhere. But just an entrepreneurial spirit. I said, girl, check her out, honey. Everything going good. And they come in, baby, and they playing games. Then they end up, you know, Mayor Giuliani is this, that, and the other. He's doing this. He's trying to clean the smut up off the streets. All really because of the AIDS epidemic and all of that. So now we're going after all the sex workers and all the sex shops and anything that is sexual and making money that they can't really track. Get into it. They can't track it all. Okay, get into it. So they get her down there to the station. They're trying to make her sing on some other people, and they're saying, you know, do you have some connection to the mob? You know, and it's really the mafia they're going after. And knowing Elektra and the way she gets down with her clientele, she probably did have mafia money backing her. Because she, just her dates, I'm sure she knows more than what she's saying. But they were trying to make her sing. And they threatened her with warrants, which brings us back around to the trunk. The trunk. Okay. The trunk. You remember she has the trunk that's in her closet with the body. Remember when she had the date that OD'd and she'd been keeping this body in this trunk and putting lime and all that in there. Lime in there and all of that. So she gets her one phone call. She's like, She calls. She got Ricky Poppy and Blanca. She's like, you already know what you got to do. You know what you got to do. Now, nobody knows really, except for Blanca, what's really going on. So they send them down to get the trunk and all of this. Blanca goes and gets the trunk, and they bring it back. She ends up having to explain it to them, what happened. And I'm like, damn all that explaining. Get the trunk and let's go. So they get the trunk. They take it over to Blanca's house. Now it's at Blanca's house. And it just started a whole circle of events. We're going to get into it. We really are. Just chill with me 1 second. But we're going to jump to 1983. And the reason we're jumping to 1983, because at this time, Blanca's still explaining to her boys who Elektra is as a person and why. So, because a lot of times they look at her, they know she's like grandma. But why she's such a bitch. How can anybody love her the way that Blanca loves her? How can anybody put themselves in a position the way that Blanca does when it comes to Elektra? Even when she hurts her, she says mean shit and all these things. So Blanca's explaining to her boys who their grandmama really is and why the relationship is what it is. And truly, only Blanca knows her background, her complete background story, you know, with the mama and all that. You'll find that out later. But anyway, so she's explaining, and then she starts to tell Poppy and Ricky basically about how Lulu, Candy, all of them, and being down on the pier and how it all came about. She has Lulu and Candy. She brought them on in. They were living with her. Then we see the night that she found Angel, Cubby, and Lamar. Okay? And they were young, and they were down there on the pier. And honey, Miss Angel was over there still. Just as girl looked like a little Pat Benatar. She looked like a little stud, honey. But a woman. She still looked like a little woman. And they were young. They were only 16. Lamar and Angel are cousins, and they ran away on their 16th birthday and been down on the pier. They met Cubby, and they all kind of like had each other's back, so they had like a whole bond. And they end up meeting her. Then a date ends up pulling up, and the date's like, "Yeah, come on, Elektra. How could we want to hit with you, baby?" And she got her fur on. You know how she's doing, and she's asking them questions. They're telling her how they sleep in shifts and watch each other's back, and um, Angel's like, I only go out and, I'll only turn tricks when we get really hungry. She's lying. She lying. She always felt some kind of way about working the beat. She'll do it, but she always felt a way about it, and Electra's like, yeah, girl, whatever, honey, you out here turning it when you can, this thing. And said sometimes, Cubby will go sometimes, because when we first met him, Cubby was just getting out of a car, okay? So the date hollers out there, and this is so much of what be going on, child. Bring your little friend with you. Yeah, it could be fun, honey. We know he's talking about Angel, honey. And so they're telling Angel, yeah, bitch, go ahead, bitch. You know she making more money than you, bitch. Go ahead. And Elektra was like, no. Not at all, miss. Not at all. Told her, here, go to this address. She writes down the address, and she tells them, go to this address. There's a girl that's going to let you in. Her name is Blanca. She said, she has a terrible wig, but she's a beautiful spirit. I said, girl, she's so shady, honey. So shady. So they're like, Angel said, well, girl, who do we tell her that sent us? And she said, tell them that your mother sent you. My name is Elektra. I said, work, Miss Elektra. Chelsea, that's how she became their mother as well. So they kind of went on. And it's so funny because somewhere in there, they became more attached to Blanca, and Blanca ended up being their mother. But originally, it was the grandmother who actually found them. But at some point, they all literally, well, no, not Candy and Lulu. Candy and Lulu are Blanca's sisters. But in the grand scheme of things, what ended up happening with Lamar, Cubby, and Angel ended up being more attached to Blanca, and they became Blanca's children, and Elektra is actually their grandmother. So, listen, it's too much to explain. It happens. But anyway, I thought that was pretty fierce. So she went on, and that was that. So now we go back to this whole thing. So, in the midst of all of this going on, we had to Blanca's boyfriend, Christopher, comes. Christopher ends up being mixed up in it because he comes in, he's like, what's that smell? Of course, he is hypersensitive to all this stuff. He's a doctor. So she ended up having to explain it because he got mad. He was like, you got to explain. You can't keep shutting me out of stuff because something ain't right. He explains it to her. He told her, I want to be there for you, for all of you all. See, now they got a house father. That's how that came. And at that moment, he became their house father. And it's just those kind. I know people keep asking me in different lives and stuff. When I do lives, they'll ask you, like, where does the house father come from? Is the mother and the father dating? Sometimes, but sometimes it's not that at all. Sometimes it's just a situation where there's a person that oversees. In my situation, when I had my house, the house of Treasure, everybody knows myself and Chet are brothers. We don't have any type of, he's my best friend. We don't have any type of canoodling, honey. He better not get up that close to me, honey. I'll elbow him in his nose. But he was the father of the House of Treasure. When it first started, I started the House of Treasure. It was just me, mother treasurer, and then I had all my kids. Chet was actually one of the treasurer kids. He actually came. He followed me into it when we were in a house together, and we were siblings in that house together. But then when I left that house, he left that house. We both left at the same time, and then I created my own house, and he just supported me and became one of the members of the house. But as time went on, I just was watching, and he played as much a role with my children as I did, with getting them together for balls, and when they were having issues that they didn't want to tell me about, they were talking to Chat. It was just a natural progression. I was like, child. One Sunday we were having a meeting, honey. I was like, listen, he ain't know either. I was like, child, y'all got a father. Y'all just never acknowledged it, but he's the father. He's the father of the house. He's always been that. He's always worked in that capacity, even though y'all thought he was a sibling. And that's how that kind of is. Again, this house thing, it's very deep and detailed, and it's a lot of it is emotion. A lot of it is relationship. It's a lot of things. And you'll find that each house has commonalities, but each house is different. Each house is different. Now, in my house, I didn't even, like the kids in the house, no, y'all will not be dating each other, because I don't even want the confusion. I don't want the confusion. But you have other houses where they, do all of that. So, again, commonalities, but different. And I just never really had that issue. I guess if somebody would have really liked each other, really, really liked each other, ain't nothing I could have did. They'd have just been dating. But thank goodness, I was like, no, I really don't want that child, because y'all be fussing and fighting and arguing and carrying on. But anyway, again, here we go. We soapbox. We on to something else. That's how Christopher basically is the house father to them. He told her, I want to be there for you and them. I said, bingo, house father. They may never say it on the show, but that's what it is. He has a whole career, okay? He has a career. He could have just walked away and left all that mess alone. He dates Blanca. But he told her, listen, these are your kids. I'm house father, period. And he may never come to the ballroom, but that's what he is, honey. He's the father of the house. Not the house of abundance, because the house of abundance is the whole complete house, but the house of Evangelista. Christopher's the father. Anyway, moving on. So they go and they bail out Elektra. See what I mean, Christopher? They bail out Elektra, and they're talking and everything. And she is saying, I need money and stuff because I got to get a lawyer and this, that thing, and the other. And all of these different things. So becomes this other issue about this trunk. There's another issue about the trunk. So they got to do all that with this trunk. That trunk needs to not be around anymore. We also, I got to go back for a minute, because we also explain how the trunk got out of Tasha's house. Okay? And again, in the story of who Elektra is and what she does, what she said, mother always provides. They were out there, and they were kind of living, it was rough. They were losing their lights and the food, the food was scarce and different things like that. And Elektra was taking care of everybody, okay? At that point back then, this back in 83. Elektra's taking care of everybody. And Candy was always a bitch. Candy was like, girl, this is your house, Miss Thing, and it's all your rules, bitch. You pay the bills. We ain't got to worry about it, bitch. We're going to listen to you, bitch. You're going to take care of us. It's just the way it is. Miss Candy was always something else. And it was good to see Miss Candy back in this episode, too. Miss Candy. Anyway, so they go back, and that's when Blanca was saying, it was the trunk. She's telling the story of how they went to the house and had to break into the house and steal the trunk. And as they're still in the trunk, Miss Tasha catches them, baby. And she said, I'm going to call the police, honey. And then they have this back and forth, her and Elektra. And the rest of the kids are outside. They're outside, so they don't know what's going on. But Elektra and Blanca are in the house, so they got to see the whole thing. And Blanca's like, she's saying, who's this and this, that, and the other. And she's telling her, she's like, she's a mother to us and this, that, and the other, and on and on and on and on and on. And they're having this banter back and forth. And that's when Tasha's telling her basically, so there's been years have literally gone by at this point. Because we're talking about from 78 all the way to 83. So it's like 5 years have gone by. The neighbors have changed. She's like, they're always watching me and I'm by myself. She's a little nervous. And different things. And she's like, you were the man of the house and this, that, and the other. She's like, we could be here and everything could be fine if you could just tone it. And Elektra was like buying into the whole thing. She's like, okay, so my mother really does love me. It's like, yeah, girl, she does. And she ain't got nobody to really depend on. And she's kind of opening up to the thing like, you would never leave me like all the other men did. It's that single mother and the son thing. And she tells her, she basically was afraid of being alone. And she tells her, she says, okay. And she said, if you could just tone it down. And she was like, tone it down? No, girl, this is who I am. I am a woman. Look at me. I am a woman. My name is Elektra. I am a woman. Period. And told her, goodbye, Tasha. And he's like, no, you're not going to manipulate me into being something that I'm not. I'm not a boy. I'm not a man. I am a woman, sis. And I'm gone. So that was it for her and Miss Tasha. I felt bad for her. I did feel bad for her. But girl, listen, you ran your child away. And you want it the way you want it, but that's just not the way life is. It's not fair, but life isn't fair, is it? So much for that. Anyway, moving on. There was a whole conversation naturally between Blanca and Elektra as to why would you tell Christopher my business? Why would you have him, as she told her, she said, listen, we needed to get you out. He's my man. He's not just any man. Because that's what she said. Why would you take money from him to get me bailed out? I never want to be withholding to any man. Ever. And she said, he's not any man. He's my man. And it is what it is. And they told her, honey, it's going to take a whole team to clean up the skeletons in your closet, mother. I said, oh, double entendre, honey. So that was that whole thing. And that was very interesting as well. Let's move on. We got to flip back to 1983. We actually see when the kids actually did move into a brand new house. And they were like coming to see this place. And Electra's like, yeah. And they're like, this is so nice, girl. Oh, yeah, girl. Look, one day we'd be able to live somewhere like this. And she's like, you do. And they were like, oh, my gosh. So that was that. What she had done in Elektra was just sitting back, and the kids were running around the house, and they were like looking in the refrigerator, and it's where they were living, and it's like this really nice studio apartment and everything, and they got more space, and it just was clean, and it was nice. And Blanca was walking around, and she looked, and she seen the trunk. And she looked in the trunk. She remembers all the stuff that was in the trunk, and seeing that the trunk was completely empty. Completely empty. She had sold everything. Everything. And the only thing that was left in the trunk was the picture of Elektra and her mom. And some kind of way, Blanca ended up with that picture. She took that picture. And she got that picture. She had that picture. But, and she ended up giving it back to her. At the end of this episode, she ended up giving it back to her. And she took it and she put it in her purse. It's like, because that was all she had left from her past. That was all. It's that one picture. And Blanca had it all those years, holding on to it. But, yeah, she had emptied the trunk literally to take care of them. To take care of those kids. So that was that whole thing. And then you got to see that whole thing of the appreciation between Blanca and Elektra of each other. So then we go through the whole thing of getting rid of the trunk. So it was Poppy, Ricky, because Ricky, when Ricky left, pray tell Ricky been staying back with damn Elektra. I said, oh, okay. So Christopher and Blanca, baby, they threw the trunk. They put the trunk in the river, child, got rid of it. So that's that. So we get done with all that. So then here we go. Then they were talking about we had to do a flashback. I said, remember when we walked as a house, as a full house together when we first came to the ballroom scene? Baby, and we seen them when they very first in 1984, when they were introduced, when it was introducing the House of Abundance, and the category was Walk as a House in the Land of Fairy Tales. And there was a house right before them that was just horrible. It was horrible. And then we see Pray Tell. You know, I love to see Pray Tell doing this thing. Baby, House of Abundance come. They said, okay, we got one more house. First one out, baby, is Miss Lulu with all these titties, honey, and this ball gown. And she comes out as Rapunzel. I said, come on, Miss Lulu. And the hair was long. You know, naturally, Rapunzel got long hair. So it's this long plait, honey, and it was all the way back. And when you get to the other end of the plait, honey, here come Cubby and Lamar pulling down on the ponytail. I said, y'all better do this thing, honey. She rolled through. Then next, baby, I said, Miss Thing, you had better. Child, Miss Angel came up through there like a punk rock Red Riding Hood, honey. I said, girl, I looked at her, she stormed that goddamn floor, and I looked at her and said, we are young. I'm telling you, she was giving you Pat Benatar tease, but just beautiful. Beautiful and so butch. She was very butchy and dykey, but real pretty. I said, oh my God, Angel. A little punk rock, Red Riding Hood. It was everything. I said, bitch, you, oh, bitch. It was everything. After her, child, here comes Miss Candy. Baby, they had the whole, it was like a pillow strapped to this bitch's back with the hair on the pillow, and that bitch's head, she's walking down there with this little negligee. Honey, she was Sleeping Beauty. I said, Miss Candy, you better do it, honey, with your beautiful black self, honey. She came down there, baby, and gave them, getting to it. Honey, Pray Tell was going in. As they were coming out, he was getting his life and going in. I swear, nobody else, nobody, there is nobody else on this planet that could be Pray Tell other than Billy Porter. Period. Period. Child, I get such life off of Billy Porter up on that podium carrying on his Pray Tell. I said, child. So anyway, then this thing, here come Blanca. And Blanca had this little squeezer, this little Tony Braxton thing going on. And she got this sparkly apple, and she's Snow White. And she come down there, baby, and it was like, you better stop. And that's what Pray Tell said. Come through here, Snow White, and she's not eating the poison apple. She's making you eat the poison apple. I said, oh, my God. It was too much. I was over here losing it. I was screaming and hollering there. I said, I know my neighbors think I'm crazy, but that's all right. That's all right. I was crazy for that moment. I was having myself a good time. And then, baby, Mother Elektra, honey. That bitch came out there as the evil queen, honey. Remember, back then, Maleficent hadn't been visualized. You know, she was still in the comic book. But, you know, still just a cartoon character. But she came as the evil queen. And, I mean, that costume was down. I said, Elektra. And remember, this is 1984. This is not now. This is 1984. Down, the evil queen, honey. Turned it out. When she rolled up out of there, Pray Tell went all the way in. All the way in. And she said, honey, she said, I am the Mother Elektra of the House of Abundance. He said, yes, you are, bitch. I said, it was so funny. I was like, come on through here. I'm so mad the show is going off. I'm so mad it's going away. But it was everything. I swear I subliminally, I think this was, not subliminally, but subconsciously. This is the episode I've been waiting for since this came on. Child, where the hell did Elektra come from and what is her issue? And now we know. Baby, I loved it. This has been one of my favorite episodes thus far through all 3 seasons. Loved it. I enjoyed myself, and I'm sure y'all did. Leave it in the comments. Leave it in the comments, and I'll talk to y'all next week. Later.